Hi, everyone. Welcome to Where I'm From 119 with Mary, who is here with me, which is a special joy. So, what I've read, I read the whole thing because some of you know I've been sick. Tom Lake, It's Kind of Shiny by Ann Patchett. I loved it. No surprise there. I love her, but this one, I don't know, it was just kind of celebratory, I think, a bit more than some of her other books. It felt a little more like joyful, I think. I loved it. Anyhow, what about you, Mary? Have you read it and are you reading anything?
I have not read that, but I have read Ann Patchett. I am reading, it doesn't show very well.
Yes,
Rooted,
it's hard with the blur.
with the blur on. I'm reading Rooted by Linda Lynn Hopt, which is her essays on life at the crossroads of science, nature, and spirit.
That sounds great.
And it was done on the heels of Becoming Kin by Patty Krawiec, if I'm saying her last name right. And it's she's Indigenous in Canada, and it's about how do we live together. And I just really, really adored her work.
Both sound really great and important. It makes me think of Braiding Sweetgrass. Not that every book about an Indigenous author makes me think of Braiding Sweetgrass, but I do feel like Robin Wall Kimmerer is talking about through botany how we all live together.
Oh, I loved that book. I loved it.
Just I attended like some Zoom talk she hosted, and I just felt she just made me feel better about life.
Yes, and interesting that it was because of that book and some of the scenes for people who've read that might recognize some threads that are in my poem tonight.
Oh, how fun that we referenced that then. So, as a brief introduction, Mary and I know each other through Project for Advancing Health Stewardship through the University of Minnesota. Mary is a leader, one of the leaders, and I just I'm thrilled that you're here with me because this feels like a full circle-ish moment for me since I discovered this prompt through Janine in those workshops. So it's just special you're here.
Yes, thank you. I love minutes of reciprocity like this.
Yeah, me too. Well, if you're ready, I'd love to hear you read.
Okay. And apologies if my dog barks in the background.
Oh, well, we both have that apology.
Right. Okay. I am from sun-warmed wild strawberries, foraged in tiny meadows, sumac arching above, from tang and tide to whiten away red raspberry stains. I am from silence, not silence, when walking alone the pony trail, threading through oak trees that guard. I am from raucous family, but don't play tough with Mary. From high public performance expectations, but shake your head, let me hear your brains rattle. I am from bare feet dancing on a cool stone fireplace mantle, wordless, entreating, enticing, cajoling, calling the hearts of others. I'm from the stillness of a mouse under bed blankets as explosions of voices and furniture crashes pierce the walls. I am from books and books and books and books read on grass, rocks, trees, chairs, double beds, single beds, station wagon beds, bus stations, moving, standing, still, open, hidden. I am from Irish lineage that I embraced and German lineage that I did not. I am from a trickle to stream to thunderfall of felt memories of where I'm from, but also so many memory blanks. I am the sandpaper rubbed smooth of grit as I polish, no childhood pictures to find, returning to the strawberries that nourished my bones all those years ago.
How beautiful. The wild strawberries.
That's right. That's absolutely right. They're one of the places I just really resonated. She caught me from that moment on.
Mhm. I never had that experience, but it was something that she brought to life. And I think anybody who's ever picked anything wild anywhere, because I had an aunt and uncle I would visit, and they had wild blackberries, and that
Yes.
was like such a, I don't know, it seemed incredible to me. It's something so wonderful just existed without being tended to.
Yes, and there goes my dog, and I apologize.
No, I can't hear. So
But I do think also that one of the things that evoked for me were memories of childhood. And I think one of the reasons why I grew as well as I did is all of that foraging I did for myself, the berries, the tips of the grass, wood sorrel, whatever grew in my yard.
so was that in Minnesota or was that elsewhere?
Yes, it was Minnesota. I lived anywhere from up on the North Range where we picked the blueberries down to ex-urban below the cities before. Now it's part of the cities.
Mhm.
But in those days, it was ex-urban. And yes, I dreamed of the ability to gather the acorns from the oaks and somehow pound them into the flour we were going to use to make our breads. I had all kinds of wild ideas as a kid.
Have you done it now as a grown up? Have you ever done that?
You know, as a matter of fact, my daughter one year for Christmas bought me acorns, and it was like a package to go. They're still in my pantry. I haven't had the time.
The trick is to go somewhere where they do it and you would join in, because I've done that, and it's like, it's not the same, but it's satisfying. It sort of shows you like the connection to what once was.
Did you really do that with like acorns?
Yeah.
Or was it something? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Where did you do that?
Here, because we have them here. We do. You're making me doubt myself, but yes, we have oaks.
No, I believe you. I'm like, but not like, Minnesota, really?
No, there we Chumash people and Tongva people, but I did this with a Chumash experience. Oak is like their, tree, and they source all their flour and much of their housing, all sorts of things from oaks. So when you go to a Chumash cultural center, you can do these things. So
that is so cool.
Yeah, it was really cool. So I mean, I love all of that because I'm a visitor here, I'm a guest, but I still feel very connected to the land. I feel like it nourishes me and supports me, and that I give it, thanks in a real way is important to me.
Yes. Yeah. That's actually some of what Patty Kralik does with the book, Becoming Kin, and thinking about how do we become kin in this land that actually, yes, I come from settler stock, but the strawberries are what grew me.
Right. And are meaningful to you. And I actually love that in Braiding Sweetgrass, talking about moving somewhere new, and you meet all of the new flora and fauna, and how it's a whole process, because I've always kind of felt that way, because I've spent a lot of my life in Southern California, and to many it's not that hospitable, but to me it feels familiar and loving and supportive. And whenever I've gone and come back, I feel like, oh, I understand this.
Yes.
How this works.
Yes, right. So I mean, you mentioned our project for advancing healthcare stewardship in that stewardship space, and I carry that with me in a lot of different arenas, and one of which is very, very much this kind of relating to what's the growing environment around me, which can go right down. I mean, it can look barren, but even there, usually there's things growing under soil, if not visible on top. Yeah, it was super, super important.
It's so important to remember that. I lived in Illinois for 4 years, and winter was devastating for me because I didn't have enough awareness of that at that time in my life. And so it did look so barren and lacking of hope and tomorrow.
Yes.
And I just felt really low. I mean, the weather didn't help either, but I think it was also just my lack of awareness of everything that's happening that I can't see.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Like
Yeah.
it will come, spring will come, everyone, it's coming.
Right. And the
Definitely.
kinship that you can have with
Yes.
remarkable other living beings that we don't necessarily think about, but we aren't as alone as we think we are.
Right. Yeah. So I think it's very important. Here we don't think about it as much because there's always something living and growing.
Right.
But I wish that invisibly living and growing. But there I stared at the lake a lot, but you know.
Lake energy is incredibly important. My daughter went to college, deliberately, specifically picked her college because it was on Lake Superior.
Mm.
So she could walk and sit by the water daily, even when it was frozen over.
Yes.
At least on that part of it.
Yes, right? It does. It's sort of astounding.
Yes.
That something that enormous can, it's cold. It's very cold. So what was the experience of writing this poem for you, Mary? And did you write this in the workshop, or did you write this for this, or have you written many versions? Or?
I wrote it for this. So it would be entirely different from what I would have written for the workshop because it's, well, even if it had only been months later, time flows. You're right. And, so I think it comes through a little bit in that one line that was sort of somewhat breaking the fourth wall of,
I love it.
Where I'm from is, and picking and choosing, because suddenly the things it was triggering, so many could be that, could be this, could be that, could be this. Do I, where do I put my attention and time and, the attention and time of the poem itself. Because it was, like I said, it was just triggering just all kinds, which was an interesting experience because I guess I don't, as I've said, I don't think of myself as a writer. And yes, I know how silly that is because I breathe, therefore I write. And so to enter this kind of space of, gosh, there could be so many things I could write was revelatory for me. And so I think even the, how to wrap it was, I was having a hard time staying concrete, in that last round because it had moved into such a thoughtful space.
Well, you did it. You did. I thought it was beautiful. And of course, I always think about like the things that I relate to, or the things that have popped up in other poems that are of interest. And so if it's not too personal, why don't you have childhood photos? Because you're probably the third or fourth person, fifth, who has not. And there's always usually a story of why you don't.
Yeah, well, it's one of the spaces I touched into and then left for the writing because I'm the fourth of five children, and the three older were so close together. They were like a unit. The younger was so photogenic, and my stepfather at that point in time loved photography, took gazillion pictures of her. I was in between. and just not the subject often. And I actually, another thread I could pull out of it instead would be, I am not the archivist, my older sister is. And so old family photos probably reside with her. I moved frequently when I was young, usually within 5 years. And so this sort of kind of clean out the house, do the sorting, those aren't coming, those are. And it's been carried through a lot of my adult, that literally almost every 5 years, I get sort of this urge to,
for sure,
to unpack the house of the things I wouldn't carry with me for the next house. And so I don't actually, there are times when I feel sad because I don't have those things to go back to remember. And then on the other hand, I like having the open space to grow into. And I definitely say with each decade, I like myself better. So
me too.
I'm kind of more interested, and that's just me. There are other people who, like my sister, who's the archivist, who finds great joy in the other side. But for me, having this open for what I'm growing into, even as I grow old, and what the heck does that mean? But and that would be another book I could talk about reading recently was, the Swedish death cleaning.
Oh, right. I haven't read that.
And that really resonates for me.
So there was a story. There usually is a story. I think it's interesting with larger families how they often do split into these different, because I think in media lots of times we sort of we have the big happy family, and in my experience, when there's more people, that's not how it usually breaks down. I'm the fifth of 5. I'm the one who got her picture taken a lot, Mary.
Right.
And it's also age. Like there was just more like cameras around, like it was just, and it's funny because there are huge periods in my life where I do not have pictures. So it was like someone felt like taking pictures. So there's a bunch. Then nobody had a camera.
Right.
For like 2 years or 3, and then it's like, oh, your school picture, nothing else. I am an incredibly visual person. So I am obsessed with pictures. And when somebody shows me a picture of myself that I have not seen, it's the most like, I love it. I love it because I am the person who takes the pictures, keeps the like I'm the person at the group gathering that takes the pictures and sends them to people and does that. And I'm actually trying not to always do that so that I can just experience the thing.
Right. Nothing filtered through a lens.
Yeah. But so it's I'm grateful that you feel the way you do about not having pictures, that you're not like that to you. It isn't a symbol of something larger that you weren't being seen.
Right. No. And to be honest, I think the pictures would have been the least of the things that would have helped me feel seen.
Well, they are some kind of representation.
Yeah.
Which is part of the reason I love them. I don't find them to be accurate. I find them to be intriguing.
Yeah. And evocative.
Yeah.
Yes. Right. Yeah. I think, that was the line to the dancing in there is that, I've always referred to dancing as my first language, English as my second. And one of the most formative experiences was being 7 years old and dancing. This was not part of a class. It was, but it was something I had set up and was trying to reach people with it. And I was met with silence, and it took me decades to figure out that was actually in our narrative health forms where silence is an appropriate response. to something that you are experiencing and recognizing, but there was no one there to tell me that at the time. So I interpreted it as not a positive.
Right, as a rejection.
And not being seen and not being heard and not being recognized. And it's, it's interesting. I think that's one of the reasons why I find that idea of profound silence as response something very moving, because it helps me rewrite that story many times over. I'll have to rewrite it many times over for me to finally integrate it as a new idea.
I think that's very difficult for a child. I think it's incredibly difficult for grown-ups. I think for a child, especially, I don't know, and that I think now, anytime, like, we want applause. That's how we were taught. We were doing something good and worthwhile was, positive reinforcement. It was very much about positive reinforcement. So,
right. But communication from, if it's not verbal, a hug would have been, or a mirror back of it or something, right? Many ways to as I was just coming, since I literally just came from a session on writing for the classroom and teaching, reminder that nonverbal is a form of writing. When we're doing this kind of attempt to communicate.
It is to our benefit to expand the definition of writing and expression and all of these things, it's always good to expand, but I don't think that's how it felt when I was younger. Felt like the more exacting, the more specific, the better chance I have of success, and ultimately success is the goal. Expansiveness it's much more difficult to quantify. And so if you're obsessed with quantification, which capitalism is, we don't want that. So
that's right. That's absolutely right. Yes. And even closer, in that, that it's the grade.
Yes, which I was obsessed with, and these are conversations that I have with my children, and I can say with all honesty, like, I don't know what it gave me. I don't know that it gave me the thing that was promised.
Right.
I don't know that any of this matters.
Right. No, that's yes. The not in the end. Somebody just gave me a quote from Ursula LeGuin. That was, the ends justify the means. If there is no end, all you have left is means. How we behave rather than
right. And I think that is sort of the con, right? Which is what I was talking about recently, was that sort of belief that if you grind hard enough, then you get to a finish, and then you reap the rewards or whatever.
Right.
But there's no finish.
It's all practice.
I mean, there's death, but that may be a finish for you. It may not, but I don't want to wait till then to relax.
Right. And if I don't know what death means, I mean, I know what dying means, and I know what being dead means, but if I don't know what death means, then I don't know what the end is, and all I have are the means.
Right. So it's just like, okay, let's just step back from this whole construct, shall we? Well, I have one other. So I'm German and Irish, so that made me laugh about you embrace the Irish, but not the German. And you've actually read some Irish like sayings or poems
Yep.
in the forums. And so
Mhm.
I knew you were Irish, or I assumed you were because you were reading them, I guess. But so is there a story behind why you embraced one and not the other? Because
Oh,
I am similar and I think it's funny. And I think there's a lot of us.
yes. Well, in St. Paul, Minnesota, there are a lot
Right.
of us.
Yeah.
And that in and of itself just can be funny. But mine is more personal, that my Irish is from my mother.
Mm-hmm.
And she was a hero to me.
Mm-hmm.
She was a flawed hero, but she was a hero.
Mm-hmm.
And also the Irish that she taught me,
Yeah.
was, definitely touched me.
Mm-hmm.
My dad was German. He was very challenging. He
Mm-hmm.
was, he had some severe mental illness, actually, eventually
Mm-hmm.
identified. And not difficult in the 1960s and 70s. of World War II was
Right.
still closer than it is
Right.
today.
For sure.
And, and it spilled over, so I have a misbehaving dad who came from this
Mm-hmm.
misbehaving country, and
Mm-hmm.
it was easier. And I had not had the cultural exposure from him that I did
Mm-hmm.
from my mother. No one, he was not introducing me to the German romantics like my mother was introducing me to the Irish bards.
Mm-hmm.
So that doorway was never opened in those
Mm-hmm.
formative times. Yes. Yep.
So there is the story. Mine is not that exact. So I love hearing yours. My husband and I will laugh sometimes. We'll watch like an Irish television show and we just feel comforted. Like there's just something, I don't know. Speaking of sort of that braiding sweetgrass.
Like The Quiet Girl.
Yeah. Like where we're from.
Yes.
Intergenerationally. That there's just something like we'll just like you'll exhale and hearing the voice, the accents and the space, and I don't know.
Yes, I haven't traveled extensively, but I have been to Ireland.
I haven't. I want to go.
And I do find it very home.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't been to Germany, but I have been to Vienna,
Mm-hmm.
which has a lot of
Mm-hmm.
influence.
I've been there.
And that was visiting.
Yeah, and I mean the language obviously is a barrier as well. Like
right,
because
but
I don't speak German.
right.
But
culturally it was an interesting, it was interesting. I enjoyed it. It wasn't home.
No, it sort of reminded me of my grandparents who weren't very nice. Like being there.
Yeah.
Like, oh, this is like you. Like, I get it. And it's funny because I think I have been told that I look German. So when I was there, people thought that I potentially might be German, And I was like, no, I got nothing for you. I don't know anything.
Yeah.
I know Fritz.
Yes.
Which is probably just French, and I just thought it was German. But
yes, and my mother grew up here. She was, second or third at least generation, but she went over at one point when I was in my late elementary school age.
Mm-hmm.
And it took her 3 weeks to drop the brogue once she came back. It was just, that's how strong her connection was. And it's easy to do that. It was easy to do that in St. Paul, and where the little enclaves could keep things going. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, is there any other thing you would like to share? Any other last thoughts before we wrap up?
My last thought is just how inspired and grateful I am to what you've been doing with this. I think it's just remarkable, and I love how many people want to do this with you.
Me too.
That is, that's to me the mark of, this was really touching the chord.
Yeah, it's really spoke to me, and for me, it's given me an excuse to ask people to talk to me about things that are interesting and vulnerable and emotional, which I love to do. I love the opportunity to just have met someone and say, "Hey, would you like to come join me and do a poem with me?" And people say no. Some people, it's not like everyone says yes, but a lot of people do. And it's been incredibly validating of the thesis that people just would like someone to listen to them, me
Yes,
included. Like it's a special thing to just be heard.
absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. No, thank you for asking me.
Oh, I'm so thrilled you joined me. I always love talking to you in a large group, but we've never spoken one-on-one. So this has been a treat for me. So thank you so much, Mary. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely.
All right, now stop recording. Bye.